Okay, so let's start to set up our other potential modes over here. So, by default, we were playing around in move mode. Then we've got rotate and scale mode. One thing that we could have actually done earlier in our pan gesture, though, was basically just test to see if we were actually in our move mode. So we could say if current mode equals dot move, and we'd also want to do the same thing down here. And in theory, we could put the whole thing in a big old set of brackets as well, but that's good enough. So when we select our row and component, right now we've got this else statement, which tests to see if we are in basically this mode right here using this picker, and we're testing component 0, so that's that one right there. What we want to test now is this one. Don't worry, we'll get to that one eventually, but let's just change this to an else if statement. So we'll jump down there, we'll put 2, and this is probably a perfect opportunity for a switch statement. So we'll put in here switch, and you can see that it's going to help you write this thing. So switch value, the value that we want to check here is the selected row in component 2, so component 2 over here, and so basically it's either going to be 0, 1, 2, or 3. So case 0, that means that we are going to set up move mode, right? And then of course let's just copy this out to, and our second one down here is rotate, so we're going to do set up rotate mode and set up scale mode. And then if you want to throw in a default value down there, just put in set up move mode, although that shouldn't ever really run. Okay, so let's come over here to, let's go, before we do our picker view stuff, let's put in here a mark, and this will be set up transform modes, or modes. All right, so set up move mode, we'll do that. And again, just rotate, scale, and one of the main things that we're going to do here is, of course, change our current mode to equaling dot move, and put that down there. So this is be dot rotate dot scale. What is your problem? I don't have 2 of those, do I? No. Okay. Now there's, again, we've already kind of dealt with our move mode. Probably we'd want to put, adjust a little label, UI label or something like that at this point. Well, and all of them really just change the text that says like, hey, you can now move this thing or do whatever. But we'll worry about that in a second. It's a little bit more fun to play with our the slider that we're going to set up here. So we are going to add in a UI slider, and probably in our rotate and our scale mode we'll use the same slider, but just basically unhide it, right? So if by default we're in our move mode, then we would hide that slider. So let's go ahead and call a function over here that will just say add slider, and we're going to come down this way. So we'll just say func add slider. All right, and let's declare a slider up here at the top of the file for us to play around with. So we'll just call it var the slider, and oops, that's going to be a UI slider type. You can just make it equal to UI slider. And again, let's go find our add slider. There it is. Nope, slider. One more time. Okay, so we'll say the slider. This is going to equal UI slider. We're going to put a frame in here for this. So it's going to be CG rect, and we're going to put in here the X value. Let's use our existing image container .frame.origin.x. And let's see, do we want to add anything to that? Maybe make it a little bit less than the, actually we can make it maybe even a little bit more than the box itself. No, you know what, let's keep it in there. So we'll just add about 10 to that, and then the Y for this is going to be our image container.frame.origin.y, and let's add into that the height of it. Let's start copying some of this. So we'll say frame.size.height, and then we'll subtract about as tall as it's going to be. I know it's a lot of math inside of there, but basically just where our image container starts at, that's going to be the origin.y plus its height. Okay, so it's going to be at the bottom of the image container, and then subtract back about 30, so it's kind of contained within it. At least it'll seem like it. And then for the width, we'll make this be our image container.frame.size .width minus 20. Okay, so we offset that by about 10, so we'll double that amount. And then our height is going to be 30. And then what we want to do is set up some minimum and maximum values inside of here. And these we could in theory change over time, but let's just for right now put in there 0.5 and slider dot maximum value. I think these are good values for the scale, just good default values for them. You probably don't want to go down lower than half of the default size, or higher than 1. Of course, again, we can toggle them later, but then what we'll do is, of course, we have to insert this into the view. So we're going to say self.view.insert subview. And we're not putting this inside of our image container, just above it, because remember, it's going to be that image container that we end up capturing all the image data inside of there and passing it into our iMessage. So this is going to be left out of it, but we do want to put it above it. So let's put it over here, above sub view, and that's going to be our image container. And then we'll say that the slider is going to be is hidden. And if it's hidden, it's disabled. It's hidden is going to be true. Okay, and then come over here. So the slider dot hidden is going to be false on those, false on that, and we'll hide it again once you switch into move mode. Okay, so the two never really collide into each other. And let's see if we got this right. Okay, go caption this guy. And let's switch over here to rotate mode. And sure enough, there is our little slider. Scale mode. There's going to be no change on it, but we go back over here to move. Okay, right? Looks pretty good. Now we just have to figure out what we're going to do when we move this little guy. So back up here where we add this, what we're going to do is put in here the slider. We need to add a target. So we're going to say add target. And the first target, that's just going to be self, so just referring to this class. The action, again, we put in here selector like we've done before. Just going to put in here messages, view controller, dot, and then the name of this function is going to be slider value changed. Okay, and then we're going to pass the sender into this, similar to what we did with our pan gesture recognizer. And then for control events is going to be, you put in here UI control events dot touch up inside. Okay. And let's see if we stop seeing an error. Oh, the error probably is just going to be that there's no, I'm just going to write this at the top of this part, that there's no function with the name slider value changed. So sender UI slider, that's the type of sender we're passing into this. And what we can do now is test to see what kind of mode we're in. So we'll say if current mode equals dot rotate, we're going to do one thing, and else if it is dot scale, we're going to do another thing. And the scale is probably actually the easier one to play around with just initially right here. So let's do that. So we'll say self dot emoji image dot transform is going to equal CG affine transform scale X, and what we can do is put in CG float sender dot value. Okay, And then obviously we'll do that same thing over here. And that should make it so that we can scale this guy up. Let's find out. And you can see actually by tying in the the minimum and the maximum value, it's as high and as low as that's going to go for scaling it, right? So scale up, scale down. Let's go over here and move it again. Move that guy around. Change it. Goes back over there. And guess what would be fun, right? To actually save the scale values on this as well. Don't you think? So let's do that. Another job for the NSUserDefaults. And if you remember, we'll just end up doing something like we did over here, right? So we just defaults.object for key. So we'll end up saving part of the key name as the emoji that we are playing with, right? And just instead of location, we'll put in there scale. So let's come back down inside of here. So what we'll do is we'll say that our defaults dot set value. Actually, well, again, it doesn't really matter which one of these we put in there, but we're going to put in here a value. That's going to be the sender dot value for key, and then that's going to be our emoji array selected num plus scale. And of course, we're going to kind of want to do the opposite of this. Here, we'll just copy these two lines when we add our emoji image in there, right? So we've already got in here, let the scale is going to equal this. So let me just paste in these two lines of code for reference. Don't need to set the defaults. What we're going to do is say if defaults dot object for key. I guess I don't really need that in there, do I? Here, you know what? Even better, let's just copy this on this line right here. So that'll be scale. If that does not equal nil, then what we're going to do is change that scale value around. So instead of making this a let variable that can't change, let's change it to var. So we'll say the scale. So that's going to equal, the scale is now going to equal defaults dot, we're going to put in here float for key. Oh, and you know what? Yeah, I guess that should be float for key, huh? Okay, so just take that whole chunk right there. All right, and then, it wants us to go as float, I believe. Oh, you know what? No, I think I want a little something different. It wants us to wrap this in a CG float value. So all you have to do is put CG float in parentheses. So there you go. That's all inside of those two parentheses. And then something I always forget too is that this is never going to be a it's always going to return true, right? What we want to test for is that this does not equal 0. Okay, so in other words, if this is anything other than 0, that means that it has a value to it, right? And then we should be able to change our scale value to being what it previously was, and then this just ends up getting used, So basically, if there's any other value, or if there's not a value, then it's just going to be 0.5. So let's see if that works. Hope it works. We'll know in a moment. Okay, so caption this. All right, and move that guy around. We'll put him over here. We'll scale it up. Okay, let's scale it to a point here where it's like the ear is like right over there. The top of the head is like right up there. Okay, and now let's go grab another one of our emoji guys, and we'll come back over here to this one. And sure enough, looks like he went right back to that same size he was at before. Let's take this guy. Let's adjust his scale. Make it so that he's just right over there at the max. We'll put him right back in the middle. Can I get that right over to there? Okay, so now let's toggle between the two. Sure enough, I think this is working. Pretty cool, huh? Let's come back over here to where we add our slider in. Actually, no, you know what? Which do we add first here? We add our slider after the fact. Well, I was thinking we could set the default value of this, but you know what? Maybe that's something we could work out later on. Let's take a break for now, and we'll come back where we adjust the rotation value based on the slider. That's going to take a little thought for me because I haven't actually done this yet.